During your time in World Class, did you ever receive any offers from the other companies like NWA and the WWF?
Well, we pretty much considered them the enemy. You know, I hate to say that they won fair and square, but we thought we'd take the whole world over with our brand of wrestling, and it was just, you know, it happened the way it did. You know, the brothers died, and you know, too bad that it happened the way it did. But no, we didn't look at it like that. We looked at it like we were going to win this whole thing. And we thought we would.
You actually wrestled barefoot. Was that something that, I know you're a big fan of Jimmy Snuka. Was that something that you were inspired by him?
Yeah, but I'm sure glad you asked me that, because everyone says, yeah, you took your boots off because Jimmy Snuka did. Well, maybe you should watch Vince WWE's 24/7. It shows Jimmy Snuka and I were wrestling on WDBS, both wearing boots. Jimmy and I put our boots off at the same time. And, you know, I'm like, I mean, Jimmy may have been a little earlier than me, and I always did admire Jimmy Snuka, but I took my boots off just because it felt so good. Yeah, I always loved Snuka. I thought he was the best athlete in the business, and I'll always say that, but I mean, the best natural athlete in the business. But as far as taking my shoes off, Jimmy and I took our shoes off together. Jimmy and I grew up out here in the Pacific together, too, Louise. In my career, Jimmy helped break me in. And so Snuka and I have always been really close friends. And pulling my shoes off, I wouldn't say had a whole lot to do with Jimmy, but I always did admire the guy, I'll say that.
I guess you wear the boots as almost protection for your feet when you are wrestling. So were you concerned that necessarily you might pick up any injuries just because you were wrestling barefoot?
You break toes a lot anyway, and you know it's not that bad. The really what got me was just the same thing, just what you're saying though. I had a lot of knee surgeries, and when you wrestle with those big heavy leather boots on and socks, they fill with sweat like pretty quick, and that puts a lot of weight on the very end of your foot. And so that's not good for a bad knee. And when I took my boots off, it, you know, took all that stress off my knee. I just felt like I could fly too. And it was so, I thought I'd never put them back on. It was the best feeling I ever had when I took my boots off. I thought, never again. In fact, I don't even wear shoes. I can't for one thing. My shoes, my toes are all broken up. But that, you know, one of the reasons I live out here is because I don't ever want to wear shoes again.
The great thing about the internet is, with the success of YouTube, that a lot of people can upload content. And I actually watched your match with Harley Race for the NWA World Title. What are your memories of wrestling Harley Race?
Oh man, Harley Race was tough. He was one of those guys that would just, he was going to try to win the match no matter what it took. If he had to try to dig your eye out, then even that was on the table. Harley was get beat. That was just Harley was on his title. And you could always tell someone had been in a real, excuse me for saying, you're back against the wall kind of fight with Harley, because he had a big scar over his eye where Harley tried to pull his eye, because Harley won't lose. He'll take your eye out before he'll let you beat him. He's a really tough competitor. And getting the belt from him was tough. I have to hand that to Ric Flair. So he did that. Harley was a great athlete guy. He was something else.
With your interviewing, how did you actually approach, I know it's an important part of wrestling, and if you want to be a wrestler, you have to get the interviewing side of it. How did you approach interviews? Yeah,
I did kind of. I looked at what I saw all around me as these way out characters that really, you know, everybody, you want to be either loved or hated. Everyone understands that, and you know, there's no money in between. And so that's what all the guys were doing. But they were really, I thought, going over the top with these personalities. And I thought, well, you know, I can pretty much cover, you know, just being myself. It'd be pretty different gimmick. You know, no one's doing that. You know, no one's being themselves. And so it was pretty easy to be Kevin Von Erich and Kevin Atkinson, because that was, they're pretty much the same guy. You know, it was easy to pull off. Same with my brothers, too.
A lot of people actually came through World Class Championship Wrestling. I know Steve Austin and also Jake Roberts came through before they started in the WWF. What are your memories of wrestling those guys?
Yeah, Jake Roberts, I can remember wrestling. not that impressed, but there was some really, really good athletes. The Undertaker, the Punisher. We call him Texas Red and the Punisher. Then we had the Ultimate Warrior, who I thought was a really good wrestler, but he was so muscular. You could, he practically pinned himself just by laying on his back, because those big deltoids count as shoulders, so you could just lay on your back and be pinned. He was almost too muscular to be a wrestler. But that guy, The Undertaker, I saw him wrestle Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania 25, and it was one of the best matches I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of wrestling matches, and so I have to say he is one of them. That Undertaker, what an athlete. Unbelievable. And the other guy, he retired, but that Big John Layfield wrestled for us, too, for a while. And he was a stud. He came through there and kicked a lot of guys' butts. Remember him, too. And then there were a few other big names, yeah. A lot of guys came through and made their name in world class. I mean, that's, everyone knows that. I mean, I don't want to sound impotent. I'm bragging, but yeah, a lot of guys made their name in world class.
I did an interview with Jake Roberts a couple of months ago, and we were discussing world class, and he said he called it a zoo, but he wouldn't elaborate on that. I guess he kind of means the backstage of it. Was it a chaotic backstage environment, or was
it was pretty much I'm going to do this week, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and the top guys were like that, and Jake was kind of on drugs a lot and not really there. He wasn't able to defend himself properly, and he may not have had a good experience there, but he didn't win a lot of matches. But Jake was having some personal issues at the time too. And so maybe that was it. Because I have heard of Jake Roberts being a successful wrestler. I mean, I think he went to the WWF and did pretty well, but he was having some personal issues up there in world class. But he was a darn good wrestler. He wrestled, my brother Mike wrestled him and did, pretty well. Jake was a big, tall guy and kind of strong, but he a strong guy, and he was getting strong. And he came from a wrestling family, so he knew he was doing. But during it, he just had some bad habits that followed him and kind of got in his way. Hello, this is Kevin Leonard. Listening with you on the Rafferty Most Connection podcast. I hope you enjoy it.
During entertainment in general, there was a big drug scene, not only in wrestling but in music and everything like that as well. Was that something that that you saw and were initially concerned about? I know that you've talked about your brothers getting into it and people like Gino Hernandez. When it was going on, were you initially concerned about it, that you thought it might be something that's going to hurt you later on down the line?
Yeah, here's one of the things that, Nick, when I talk about things like that, I want to make sure I'm accurate, because I'm talking about not just myself, but other people too. And so I thought that I'd, be real sure of my facts before I just talk like that. But as far as the drugs were concerned, it was the 80s. We thought the way everyone thought, if you can remember, and a lot of your listeners can remember, the way we thought in the 80s was that marijuana and cocaine would be legalized any day now. It was just a matter of time until the establishment figured it out that we in this country have a right to pursue happiness, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that was just kind of like a draconian law that was going to be done away with any day. Well, that was the 80s. And then the 90s came along. We learned out how dangerous things like drugs and steroids kill so many people. We have children. We learn to not think like children anymore. We grow up and we think like men and adults, and we understand things now. But back in those days, they weren't looked at like they are now. If you think about it, the steroids were legal back then. They were not illegal back in the 70s.